Hi everyone, my name is Cassie Cook and I'm the introducer of our group. The rest of our group consists of our summarizer, Christina, our fielder, Amy, our researchers, Paul and Ricky. Paul will be discussing the research from the pro side of the debate, and Ricky will be discussing the con side of the debate. We have chosen an informal debate in order to promote fluidity and conversation on this topic. Christina will provide summaries of both sides of the debate, and then Paul beginning with the pros and Ricky following with the cons. And then Amy will follow up at the very end with questions and illustrations for the points that have been discussed. Our group's topic is technology threatening the future of special education in ABA. It's no secret that technology is advancing and continuing to change the way we do things day in and day out. While technology can certainly enhance the efficiency of the way things are done, can technology really replace a field? Certainly, there are possibilities as well as restrictions. Throughout this debate, you will be informed about technology and the way it could potentially impact the future of ABA and special education as a whole. To begin the conversation, Paul will be covering the pro side of the topic, but first, Christina will now provide us with a brief summary of the points and sources that Paul will be outlining for you.
Due to the rapid growth of technology and the usefulness of the areas in which it provides aid, technology has become increasingly popular in the area of ABA and special education. While it provides many benefits, it would allow opportunities to people with disabilities to become integrated with populations by increasing their independence, such as allowing for personal choices. There are still obstacles that need to be understood before choosing the use of technology. Some of the issues are explained in the Garner and Campbell article, Technology for Persons with Severe Disabilities, Practical and Ethical Considerations. Some of the obstacles discussed in the article are regarding misuse of technology available, such as replacement of teacher and learner interactions, malfunctions within devices, whether regarding the device or the application within the device, the high cost of implementing the technology programs, and the use of technology as a means of increasing opportunities to interact with others and not to replace human contact. In the Ranskin and Higgins article, also described areas of concern regarding technology in the article entitled Reflections on Ethics, Technology, and Learning Disabilities, Avoiding the Consequences of Ill-Considered Action. Some of the issues discussed in this article were regarding, does the use of technology benefit others? Some of the skills are generalized better when taught without technology, and implementation need to be based on educational models and valid research. Also, assistive technology may be used too early, limiting the person's opportunity to improve on a specific skill deficit. Is the use of technology just? Justice requires equal access. However, some individuals may not have access to the technologies due to the variety of reasons, such as issues regarding their disability and also cost. And finally, does the use of technology support autonomy? Autonomy is related to freedom of choice and interest. However, many technologies are pre-programmed, which limit the user's freedom. Now, Paul will inform us on the pro side of this debate and go into further detail into the sources that have been discussed thus far.
All right, so just for a little clarification, the pro side here is saying that technology is going to hurt ABA. And one of the ways that Raskin brings this up is, does it promote beneficence? Believes that the technology use has a mechanistic reductionist technology view. So basically it is a tutorial followed by repeated tasks. Not a lot changes, and it doesn't really live up to the required skill set that you would hope to develop. And a lot of the simulation and problem solving is student-centered and allows them to create their own problems and solutions, which may be good, but can also lead to incorrect conclusions if the child is pretty much left alone to guide their own improvements. And so technology seems to fall behind this veil where many people don't understand what it is, but they will assume that it is beneficial just because it is new and shiny. So there might not be proof. People won't be as interested in facts or whether or not it's an approved method. They will just see technology and new and try to implement it. And so If technology is introduced too early into a child's development, they may not have developed enough of the skills in order to really improve. They will have missed some of the developmental markers. They won't have the same kind of maybe imitation and reading skills. They won't have the same kind of comprehension. And so they become dependent on the technology instead of using it to adapt to the environment. They're completely dependent on it. And along with the markers, there are critical learning years that may be lost if they're starts too early, become too dependent on technology instead of coping or using their own resources. And one of the large problems with technology is that it might become a substitute friend for the child. There are many clients out there that I've seen that the kids' only way of connecting with other people is through the computer, through the internet, through an iPad or game, which may be good as like a stepping stone, a building block, but it becomes their only friend and their only connection, which won't help them adapt and become beneficial parts of society. And with this reliance on technology, there's not a lot of ability to troubleshoot any of the problems. So if you are in a remote location, you can't really access anybody else that might have the technology, limited people, limited resources. And a lot of the technology at this point seems to be short-sighted. And with the use of technology in classrooms, it requires a ton of training where most teachers may not have the time available to learn how to properly implement any of the technology. They may have to resource out somebody to come in and train them, which adds to the cost. And then you also have to train the families, the students, and anybody else who works with the child and that specific technology source, whether it be an iPad or computer. And then the child would also have to maintain the same level of technology throughout if they become dependent on it. One of the next big problems that they bring up in the article is it just, does everybody have the same access to the technology? Are they all going to receive the same kind of benefit? And if technology is supposed to be mass produced, then how can we have individualized care for developmental programs for the children? And even if they do have access to the programs individualized, there's a large cost that not everybody would be able to afford. For example, a computer costs $1,000, an iPad is close to $700, and any of the more advanced specific technology devices may go for upwards of $5,000, which schools won't be able to really implement, and in-home may not have the same kind of access unless they are well-to-do or it's fully covered by insurance. And legislation benefits some, but not all students with disabilities. If we have the technology that can benefit some students, why aren't all of them guaranteed the same access to that? Even if they may not require the technology due to maybe being isolated away from big cities where services may be provided, even if they are in a big city, they should have the same access regardless of their location. And part of the problem with getting out technology into the hands of clients is that it takes a while to develop, implement, ship out, train, and finally get the technology into the hands of the client. And by the point that they get it, it is likely that the technology that is being used is outdated. It may be behind on times, may no longer be beneficial to the client. And of course, with being dependent on the technology, again, if there are any problems, it's not likely that the client will be able to troubleshoot it themselves if they're dependent on the technology. And for the most part, families won't have the same kind of technological background. And then with the dependence on technology, they won't have to meet the demands of the natural environment. They become trapped in their own little technology world, their own little bubble, where that may be the only place that they can access friends or other people. And so they won't have to adapt or cope or improve their skills. Then it will be hard to ensure meaningful progress in their life. And then also, the next big question is whether or not it promotes autonomy. So technology is tightly controlled. The companies that are making it are companies that are interested in improving their shareholder profits. They may be interested in helping other people, but their main goal is to make money for the most part. So their idea would be to mass support and mass implement some kind of, whether it be an app or just a device that helps them communicate. And so while it may be tightly controlled, because programming technology is very if-then, continuously following a script, and most of the students would benefit from a rigid schedule or not having as many opportunities for change, it is also likely that this would have detrimental effects because they wouldn't have to face any of these problems and they wouldn't have any room for changing their opinion or learning something new. It would only be step by step, one thing at a time. Also, the use of the technology creates or promotes passive interactions. They're not interacting one-on-one. And technology is ultimately dependent on the tech company. So if they're not willing to make a change for an individual that may need some adaptation to their program or their device, it would take a while for them to ship away their device so that the company could improve it or make whatever changes need to happen because it's proprietary software. Most things aren't open sourced. They would be without their device that they've become dependent on and would set back their progress, their understandings. And just with the reliance on the technology, again, they just really can become isolated and they won't have to learn how to interact with others. And it fosters the dependence on the technology. And that is a wrap on the pro side. So now we're going to go on to Christina. Christina?
All right, well, that was the pro side of our debate. And now we will start discussing the con side of our debate. So the use of technology can help in a variety of areas, which are often overlooked when determining which method of service will be most beneficial. Some areas include ease of access, measurement methods, and flexibility for clients. There are families that require services, however, do not have direct access to such services. The use of technology would allow these families access needed to gain services such as technology, including web-based training. And the Heinzman Powell, Bazart, Ruskingo, and Miller article, they explained that the web-based trainings allow parents not only to understand some of the concepts of ABA, but also learn to implement some of the common ABA strategies with their children. Not only did the web-based training allow parents to gain information regarding ABA, but it also allowed families to stay in their homes to gain the information rather than making multiple trips to the city and to attend trainings. Also, the use of technology can improve measurement methods, as described in the Crowley, Koch, and Hooton article, Automated Measurement in Applied Behavior Analysis, a review. Using automated measurement can actually reduce recording error due to the specificity in the measurements. Also, tech-based techniques are also more cost and time efficient than human-based recording. The use of this technology will aid us in measuring data, allowing for more effective treatments for our clients. And finally, technology for more flexibility for the clients, which allows for the opportunity to provide more learning experiences. In the article entitled Computer Presented Video Models to Teach Generative Spelling to a Child with an Autism Spectrum Disorder, the technology used allowed for multiple learning opportunities for the client, as well as provided reinforcement in forms of games and videos to the client, which increased the likelihood that the client would continue to use that technology. The use of the technology will allow for the client to receive more opportunities to work in a specific skill deficit, which would not be possible in a direct teaching environment. Now, Ricky will provide more detailed information regarding the sources I've mentioned and help us understand the concept of the debate.
Thank you, Christina. All right, so the first article I'm going to go over is sorry, it's a hard name, the Heitzman-Powell, the formative evaluation of an ABA outreach training program for parents of children with autism in remote areas. So the big picture of this article is they want to find out if web-based training is actually an effective method for teaching ABA. There are a lot of families out there that don't have direct access to behavioral services. They can either be living very far away, or there's not a location or any services that are in their area. It requires them to go sometimes many miles to get to a behavior service. And sometimes there just are no behavior services within their driving distance. So it can be very difficult to even learn about ABA, let alone get therapeutic help from people that understand ABA. So in this article, they try to evaluate, with a web-based training program, can we teach parents how to successfully implement ABA in their own home and teach them ABA strategies. And it was found that through using the web-based training program, parents were able to significantly increase their understanding of ABA by something like 39%, and also increase their ability to implement ABA strategies effectively by something like 41%. So about 40% boost in their effectiveness of helping their child using these ABA services or using these ABA strategies. And this is huge. It can definitely be said that we should always strive for in-home therapy to be like the standard of what we should shoot for helping these families out. You know, one-to-one session with a child, it can be very, very beneficial. We understand that. But sometimes, due to the remoteness of the family, this may be a less than ideal method of getting ABA help, but it's a something is better than nothing approach, and it's been showed that it's not even something. It's a 40% increase. That's pretty significant, and that's pretty important to helping these families out. Let's see. So that was the first one. Let's quickly move on to the second article. The Crowley-Koch article, Automated Measurement in Applied Behavior Analysis. It's a review. And yeah, as Christina said earlier, the main idea of this article is learning finding out how effective automated measuring techniques are relative to observational techniques. Often, automated measuring techniques are more accurate and efficient than human recording. Accurate just in terms of taking data, and efficient in terms of cost and time that it takes to actually get this data. There are a couple automated measurement systems that stood out to me in this article. The first one was the concept of eye tracking technology. Now, this is huge for a lot of kids on the spectrum. Eye contact is a huge deficiency, whether it be with a person that a communicative partner they're trying to talk to or to learn from, or even eye contact with the task at hand, and something that can be very difficult for a human observer to see if they're in a scenario where they're trying to teach. Is the child actually looking at me? Are they focusing on the important parts of the task at hand? Something that comes to mind is, I know for a client that I work with, we are having him do we give him a picture of like a Lego model, and then have Legos in front of him. And the game plan is for him to look at the picture of the Lego and then build the model, and then build the model using the picture with all the Legos in front of him. And what eye tracking technology would help us learn that human observation might miss is, what if we're giving him a picture and he's just memorized a variety of these pictures and no longer needs to look at the picture anymore, and now he's just doing everything off memory. He's not looking, he's not learning, oh, I need to build this new way of reaching the model. And that's something that eye tracking can really help with. We can see what actually the child is looking at, and that can tell us a lot of things, a lot of really important things, and help us know if they're really understanding the concept that's trying to be taught. Another thing that eye tracking could be helpful for is preference assessment. If you show a child something on a screen, or just even in the environment, what are their eyes attracted to? That's something that I think another thing that humans could really miss, but that using an automated measurement system could really lock down for us. You give a child an environment, and with eye tracking technology, it becomes clear what they're interested in, what they're drawn to, and even if it's obvious for humans, like, oh, they're going for this toy, they like playing with this toy in particular. What are their eyes attracted to specifically about the toy? And that can give us a lot of information on what the child prefers, and that can lead to more helpful reinforcement in the future. Another measurement system that the article goes over is about speech recognition. And this one's a little less, I didn't like this one as much because it goes back to what Paul said. Technology is still an evolving medium, and there's going to be times when it becomes outdated, or we're not there yet with the technology. And I think with the speech recognition that this article talks about, we've all tried to use Siri and have it come up with something wildly different than what we've asked. But the technology is getting there. We're making more and more improvements. I know personally, in an observation setting where I'm trying to work on a coax, trying to teach sounds to a child, I have decent ears, but sometimes if I'm asking the kid to say "ba" and they give me a sound that's very similar, I'm not sure. It could be "ba," could be something in the middle. It can be very difficult to know if they're making the correct sound right on the dot. And with speech recognition technology, we're getting to a point where the technology is more accurate than human observation, than we can hear. And that can be really important for those kind of programs. So yeah, technology, while it has its downsides in terms of measurement, is more effective in some ways than human observation. That's kind of a central thing about this argument is it shouldn't be a yes or no with technology. Trying to find a good medium is maybe the most appropriate thing. Going on to the last article, computer presented video models to teach generative spelling to a child with autism spectrum disorder by Kinney. Went over a study where they used video modeling to try to teach spelling to a child. And this, it was shown to be effective. But the more important thing is it tells us, well, it tells us that it can be effective, but even more than that, it's important to understand that kind of what I said earlier, it's not a case of we're using technology instead of a human teacher. We're using technology in coordination with a human teacher. In this case, the child still had access to school, she was being taught, but then additionally, she was given this video modeling that she could take home with and work on in her own time. This gives the child many more opportunities to learn than just a school-based setting, or even just one-to-one settings where the child gets a set number of hours each week for behavioral services. And the use of video modeling can effectively increase the amount of time that they are getting service. It can be argued that video modeling isn't as effective as in-person training or in-person learning from a human teacher for all students. Some students it could be up or down. Sometimes they do learn better from video modeling. But the main point is it's not using video modeling instead of teaching, it's using it in collaboration. It's increasing the amount of time that a child gets to learn and providing more opportunities. I said that enough. You guys get the idea. Yeah, main idea behind technology actually being beneficial to learning, to ABA, is it's helpful for remote populations, with people without access to easy services. Automation, the use of technology for measurements can be more cost effective and accurate than human modeling or human measurement. And technology like video modeling can be effective in giving a child more opportunities to learn. And that's the con side of the argument, arguing for technology. And I will pass it back to Christina again.
This is actually me, but that concludes our research portion of our informal debate. So thank you, Paul and Ricky. It's time for the question and answer segment, which will be conducted by Amy. And at this time, she will also present illustrations for both sides. And Paul and Ricky will provide answers for her questions that she's about to ask. So we'll bring it to Amy.
So first, I'm going to discuss some of the automated measurement systems that was just discussed from the article. So it had been mentioned eye tracking. This some of the pros and cons, and we had talked about how the cost of technology as well and who should be responsible for that cost. So eye tracking has its pros of the precise measurement of ocular behavior, but the price is between $20,000 to $30,000. So the equipment's expensive, and some of the equipment is actually intrusive as well. There's also GPS, which determines the exact geographical location and speed. And that costs between $100 and $1,000. The pro is it can accurately track movement, speed, and location, but there are privacy concerns with that as well. So it's kind of an overview of all of the different measurement systems that was addressed, and this discusses both the pros and the cons. And then here is an illustration of the video modeling that was discussed as well. So here in the first picture, you can see that the child is watching the video modeling on a laptop, which again can be taken anywhere. It can be at school or in a classroom away from the teacher when the teacher's not available. And here's a close-up of what the child is seeing on the screen. They're watching the person write the spelling word, and then you can see the child here is imitating the spelling. If they did that, they get to watch a video reward on the computer, which increases their desire to complete the task in the future. And now I have a few questions for both sides. Would both of you agree that ABA delivered remotely or through the use of technology should be in addition? And is there anything that could solely be delivered using the technology that we've discussed?
So I think that ABA should delivered remotely should only be in addition. It should only be something that's an assistive technology, something that helps supplement what's already going on. I don't know if there's anything that can specifically be delivered remotely and only via some technology like tele-ABA or through a device. I don't think that there's enough technology currently available for that to work out. There needs to be some human interaction, or else their goals, I think their goals would be different if we only expect them to be able to use technology instead of working with others. What about you?
I agree that an assistive approach would be the most what we should shoot for, but there are definitely situations where a family cannot get behavioral services in person due to where they live. Autism isn't something that affects only like a certain country in the world. There's places out there where there's families with a child with autism where they have nothing next to them, and it would be very, very burdensome to have to travel to a behavioral service location to get help, or for a behavioral service to travel out to them to get them help. And that goes back to the something is better than nothing argument. I definitely agree that we should shoot for using tele-ABA in addition to in-home therapy with an actual person. But when that's not possible, I think that tele-ABA by itself should definitely be considered.
Okay. And Paul, is there a certain line you could put up saying that this should not occur? This should not take place remotely, either ethically or it's just not possible to do?
Well, I definitely think that if there's a client that has any kind of SIB or any like aggressive behaviors that need to be worked on, I don't think there's any way that you can really change these behaviors without a physical presence there. Other than that, I think assessments, you need to have somebody present to really observe. I know that they are working on that now with even diagnosis, that they've dropped it down to like a 4-minute process where there's a few like 30-second clips that are uploaded and they can diagnose from that little information. So I think it's too early to really say that it should never be done, but definitely with current understandings, I don't think that assessments or any real behavior intervention plans should be done in person or should be done over technology.
And
If
that's
more
fair.
services
Yeah.
begin being, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. I didn't want to butt in. But yeah, I was just agreeing with Paul that that it should be really, when SIBs come up, it's going to be very difficult to deal with those. But that's kind of the idea behind tele-ABA, is to teach the people in the home how to deal with this. It's not going to be we're not trying to fix the SIBs with just looking at a video over the internet. We're just trying to teach the people in the home how to effectively handle things like SIBs, just ABA techniques in general. That's the game plan behind tele-ABA, I think.
So if more services begin being delivered remotely or through technology, do our ethical guidelines need an update?
Sure. I think that it's still an evolving medium to be working in. Ethically, I think that due to the nature of the internet, you can get probably look up online and get a ton of information about what to do with your child with ABA that's of questionable merit. So ethically, I think it's very important to create standards of what goes into a remote program, what has been found to be effective, what's been found to be ineffective, and base your tele-ABA against those standards. What do you think, Paul?
I agreed with everything you said. I don't really have much to add to that.
Cool.
Right. Is there any evidence that skills that are learned through technology, like teaching through technology, can generalize to other settings, other people?
I guess, yeah, generalization is a big issue that technology could harm. I liked Paul's idea where you give a child technology. That's a situation where they're not learning from a human, and a big thing about autism is communication deficits. You give a kid an iPad instead of a person, that's not helping them communicate with the people in the environment. So generalization, I think, is a weak point of technology. I think video modeling showed that it can be effective in teaching, but it goes back to Paul's idea of, if we're just using technology instead of having it be assistive in coordination with a human teacher, there are going to be some problems that come up, and generalization is one of those. But the important thing to remember also is that technology should be thought out as an assistive strategy whenever possible. There's going to be some edge cases where technology is the only option for some people, like the tele-ABA I talked about earlier with the remote families. But I think that when used in coordination with a human teacher, it could actually probably help generalization, just due to the fact that it's more teaching being done, more opportunities for learning.
Do you feel we're risking individualization of treatment, liver services?
I think that it depends on the technology being used. I think that some technologies that I've seen things like Proloquo. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a communicative app for the iPad. It's basically screen full of pictures, words that the child can learn to use, and it speaks out the words that were said. And it's true that it's mass produced in a way, like every kid would get the same program. However, it's highly variable. It's highly you can manipulate what goes on the screen, and it can be tailored. I think a big thing about technology that has to be continue to be worked on is the ability for it to be tailored to the individual. I think you bring up a valid risk. But I think technology is getting to the point where it can be manipulated by the people in charge of the intervention to be used specifically for that individual.
So I agree that.
All right. And we haven't directly.
So I kind of agree that it might reduce the individualization, but at the risk of, if the client's not going to get any services versus maybe having a not so tailored individualized treatment, it may be better that they just have access to it and they can train, like Ricky said, train the families to know how to implement and at least get services somewhat started, so that they're not just left alone, left behind. And you really get a benefit out of having more individuals served. But like Ricky said, that they're working towards being able to really tailor individualized programs, like the applications that are there. But it does take time, and it would be time that the behavior analyst or teacher would have to spend learning how to use the device, and then learning what needs to be tailored specifically for the client. So it may be taking away from the individualization now, but I think in the future it'll definitely be a much easier process.
All right. We haven't directly talked about this today, but I thought it was an interesting thing to talk about if we're discussing ABA services delivered remotely. What about those who are seeking a national certification for ABA that don't have a supervisor in their vicinity and instead do remote supervision? How do you guys feel about that?
I guess it depends on the technology you have. I didn't actually go over remote supervision, but that's a really good point. I guess if you'd have to train the supervisor and also the person doing the in-home therapy how to efficiently set up a way that the session could be viewed. I can see a lot of problems, even when having a supervisor in the same room as me. Sometimes you guys see we'll see different things, just due to the angles we're at. So I can see some problems arising due to that. With more experience and more studying of how to effectively portray an ABA session with technology, whether it be with a camera or audio or however, I think that effective supervision could be attained. I didn't go over too much in my research. I'm not sure how effective it is currently, but I can see there being risks to it. But given enough time or training or learning about telesupervision, it could possibly be an effective way to supervise and give supervisors more opportunities to see what's going on with their clients. So kind of I'm still up in the air on that one.
Okay, well, this concludes our whole debate, which discussed technology threatening the future of ABA and special education. Hopefully you finished this debate with more knowledge on the subject, as well as formed your own opinions. Time to watch us.